So in today's discussions, I will basically discuss about what are the different types of endocrine glands and what are their secretions, and also I will discuss about the general mode of hormone action. So before discussing about the general mode of hormone actions, we must know about what are the different glands, what are the different endocrine and exocrine glands, what are their secretions, and how all the different types of secretions takes place in different metabolic functions of every individual cells. So here you can see the topics is endocrinology. It is nothing. It is the study of hormones and endocrine organs, right? So here to know about the details of endocrinology, we must know about the system first. So what is the overview of endocrine system? Endocrine systems is the systems which basically involves two things. Endocrine systems acts along with the nervous systems. To get a proper cellular response, it needs the it needs the collaborative actions of both the endocrine systems as well as the nervous system. The most important things that involves in the endocrine functions is the hormones, right? And these hormones are of various types that is secreted by different type of endocrine glands, right? Now if you compare the response by particular cells by comparing the system involved, you will find some differences. Response is slower but longer, that is in case of endocrine systems, the response is little slower but is longer lasting than nervous system. Now, if you see the profiles of endocrine systems, it involves a different type of endocrine glands, right? So, what are the most important type of endocrine glands that takes part in the endocrine function? So, these are the most important endocrine glands, so-called a profile of glands that involves to the regulations of various tasks, right? So, what are those glands? These are adrenal glands, thyroid, pancreas, pituitary or brain, ovary, testicles, and thymus. Each and every different type of glands are structurally as well as functionally different. If you see their pattern of secretions, there is a difference. As secretions is different, obviously the functions also will be different, right? Now question is, what are the different type of secretions, or what are the hormones that is secreted by those endocrine glands? So before knowing about the secretions, we must know about the basic definition of glands, right? The glands is nothing. It is a group of cells or a group of tissue that produce some secretion. Here secretions is nothing. Secretions means the hormones, right? It means, as I mentioned, these are the endocrine glands. These are nothing. These are the mass of cell or tissue, and each and every different tissue secretes some hormones, and those hormones are very essential for cellular function, right? Now, if you see the types of glands, you will find two different type of glands, right? One is called exocrine glands and another one is endocrine glands. If you compare the secretions of both the exocrine and endocrine, there is some differences. These are exocrine secretions like sweat glands and salivary glands secrete some exocrine hormones, whereas in case of endocrine glands, there are some glands like pituitary and thyroid. These are endocrines, for example, and their secretions is also different from exocrine. If you see the functional difference between exocrine and endocrines, so what is the functional difference? The functional difference is these exocrine glands releases their secretions through a particular duct, right? Means in case of exocrine glands, there is an involvement of duct, right? Whereas in case of endocrine glands, they also releases or secrete some hormones, but they secrete directly their secretions into the circulatory bloods. Means there is no involvement of duct. It means the exocrine glands is the glands with the duct, whereas the endocrine glands is the duct. Endocrine glands is the glands which does not involve any duct. It directly releases their circulatory blood, right? Now, question comes, what are the different types of hormones that is secreted by each and every different types of glands? As I mentioned, the functional features of a particular cells depends on what type of hormones are acting on that particular cells, right? At the same time, the rule of particular endocrine glands depends on the what type of hormones they are secreting, right? So these are some hormones or most important hormones that are secreted by each and every different type of endocrine glands. For examples, you can see the most important one, pineal glands, that secretes the melatonin. I'll discuss about the functions of each and every different type of glands along with their secretions. First, we need to know what are the different type of secretions. You have to remember the name of those secretions, and also you have to remember from where they are actually secreted, right? See, a pituitary secretes some hormones like prolactin, growth hormone, corticotrophic hormone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormones. Along with this, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormones are also secreted by pituitary. Now, thyroid is also an endocrine gland. It secretes mainly thyroxine, triiodothyronine and calcitonin, right? In case of adrenal glands, it secretes both epinephrine and norepinephrine along with aldosterone, cortisol and some sex steroids. In case of parathyroid glands, which is also an endocrine gland, it secretes parathyroid hormones or parathormone, right? Now, see the secretions of gonads. Here, both the testosterone and estrogens are the secretions of gonads. In case of pancreas, it secretes some important hormones like insulin, glucagon and amylin. It also secretes, thymus secretes thymosis, right? Along with this, hypothalamus, which is located in the brain, it secretes some special hormone. Means there are different type of endocrine glands and their secretions are of different. Based on the nature of secretions, we'll see how the different type of secretions acts in different cells. What is their mode of action? Whether all the different type of cells follows same mode of actions or not. If not, what are the different mode of hormone action? So before knowing about the mode of actions, we must know about the function of each and every different type of secretion. See, as I mentioned, the most important one, the pineal glands. If you see their locations, it is basically located. This is the pineal glands and it is located deep inside the brain, that is situated between the cerebral hemispheres, right? And the most important type of secretions is here melatonin. Here, melatonin is very important in particular aspects. So what is this aspects? Melatonin influences sexual developments along with sleep-wake cycles. This is the most important functions that is carried out by the melatonin hormone, which is secreted from pineal gland, which is an endocrine gland. Now, along with this, you can see pineal glands dysfunctions can lead to some disorders. So, what are the disorders? Disorders are insomnia, depressive disorders, along with the anxiety. It means it is a very essential to maintain the normal level of melatonin secretions from pineal gland. See the locations of the pituitary glands, right? As I already mentioned, pituitary secretes some special hormone. So, what are those hormones? These are the pituitary hormones: prolactins, growth hormones, ACTH, LH, FSH, along with oxytocins and ADH. Now, see, if you see the structures of the pituitary, you will find two different lobes of the pituitary. One is called anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. And if you see their nature of secretions, the nature of secretions is also different. For examples, you can see these are the hormones that is secreted from anterior pituitary, like these one: prolactin, growth hormone, ACTH, LH and FSH. They are secreted from anterior pituitary. Whereas in case of posterior pituitary, it mainly secretes two hormones, that is oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, right? The pituitary glands is very important in a particular aspects. So, why it is important? As because it directs other organs, as well as it controls the secretions of some other endocrine glands. That is why pituitary glands is also known as the master glands. So, here you can see the pituitary gland system is master glands because it directs other organs as well as other endocrine glands to suppress or induce hormone productions, right? It means the hormone that is secreted by a various type of endocrine glands are controlled by our master glands, that is the pituitary. Next one, thyroid and parathyroid. You can see the locations of the thyroid glands. See, it is a bilobe structures and it is located in the neck region, right? And most important things or functional features of these thyroid glands is it controls the cellular metabolisms, it involves with the growths, it also involves the regulations of the heart rates, body temperatures, along with it also involves the regulations of cellular calcium levels. So, in that aspect, we can say the thyroid glands is very important in physiological point of view. Now, see what is the type of secretions? Most important hormone secreted by thyroid gland is thyroxine, triiodothyronine and calcitonin. Now, just see the surface of the thyroid glands, there is a lobe-shaped structures. These are nothing, these are parathyroid glands. And these parathyroid glands are found within the thyroid tissue that are located the posterior part of the thyroid glands. So, you can see as I mentioned, what is the exact locations of the thyroid? It is located near the neck region. Whereas the parathyroid glands, this one, they are basically located at the posterior regions of the thyroid glands, right? And the most important secretions of the thyroid is thyroxine, triiodothyronine and calcitonin. Whereas the most important secretions of parathyroid gland is PTH, right? So, here like the thyroid glands, parathyroid also involves in particular functions that regulates the calcium levels in the blood. It means here hormone played an important role to maintain some minerals, some chemicals. Here it is calcium. See the locations of the another important glands called thymus. Here thymus glands is located in the center of the chest cavity, right? This is the locations of the thymus glands. As I already mentioned, the most important type of secretions of the thymus glands is thymosin, right? Now see, if you see the functions of thymus glands are not only involved with the secretions of some hormones, Instead, we can say the most important function carried out by thymus is the immunofunction, right? This is the main functions of the thymus glands, right? Other than immunofunctions, it also involves the secretions of some hormones. You can see from here, its primary function is to promote the development of a specific type of cells, so-called the white blood cells or T lymphocytes. As all of us know, T lymphocyte is an important immunocells. So, the most important functions of thymus is the productions of T lymphocytes or immunocells. Along with this, it's also produces some hormones called thymosin. So, what is the role of the thymosin? Which increases the immune response by promoting the productions of antibodies. So, here we know the T lymphocytes is the cells which are mainly involved with the synthesis of some antibody. But the synthesis of antibody depends or influenced by some other molecules. Here molecules are nothing, these are the hormones. So, what is the name of that hormone? The hormone here is thymosin. Now, see another important endocrine glands, that is the adrenal glands, right? And if you see the locations of the adrenal glands, it is located in the surface or the upper surface of both the kidney, right? And its secretions are of two different types. See, the adrenal glands produce hormones in both the inner medullary regions as well as the outer cortex regions. The most important points means the secretions of adrenal glands are secreted mainly in the inner medullary regions as well as the outer cortex regions. Here, the most important type of secretions that is found in the adrenal cortex regions are steroid in nature, right? It means we can say the adrenal glands is the glands which secrete some hormones which are steroid in nature, and the mode of actions of steroid hormones are a little bit different from the mode of actions from other hormones, right? See here, in the cortex regions or the adrenal cortex hormones includes the aldosterone, cortisols and the sex hormones. All of us know there are some hormones whose chemical features is steroid in nature in comparison to others. Here's the sex hormones is steroid in nature. The hormones that is secreted from adrenal glands are steroid in nature. So here, what are the most important functions that is carried out by the secretions of endocrine glands? Like aldosterone, it causes the kidney to secrete the potassium as well as it involves the retentions of water and sodium. The most important function of hormone aldosterone, right? Along with this, it not only involves with the retentions of water and sodium, it also involves with the regulations of the blood pressures. Here, in this case, it causes the increase in blood pressure. Whereas cortisols, also secreted by the same endocrine glands, it acts as an anti-inflammatory, it has anti-inflammatory property, right? And it helps to maintain the blood sugar level as well as the blood pressures. So, this is the functional features of the hormone cortisols. Now, see the hormones that is secreted in the adrenal medullary regions. It includes the epinephrine and norepinephrine. So, what is the most important functional features? The most important functional features is it reacts under certain conditions, like the stress is a conditions in which in this particular conditions these endocrine glands secretes both the epinephrine and norepinephrines that involves to maintain or regulate the conditions. Another important endocrine glands is the pancreas. And most of us know the type of secretions of pancreatic glands. So, if you see the pancreatic glands or pancreas, the most important type of secretions are of insulin, glucagon, right? But pancreas has some special property that is absent in other glands. special property is it has both the exocrine property as well as endocrine property, right? It means it involves the exocrine functions as well as endocrine functions. So here you can see the both the exocrine glands and endocrine glands, how they involves the regulation of certain activities. See, the most important type of secretions are glucagon and insulins, and glucagon raises blood sugar levels while insulin lowers the blood sugar levels. Along with the regulations of the blood sugars, it also involves with some other metabolic activities. So what are the other metabolic activities? That is controlled by the pancreatic secretions. These are the metabolism of glucose, protein as well as the fat. It means the pancreatic secretions is very important for us because it mainly regulates or it helps to maintain the homeostatic balance of regulation, I mean the metabolisms of 3 different biomolecules like sugar, I mean so glucose, proteins as well as the fat. There are some disorders that may happen in abnormal secretions of pancreas. These are called pancreatitis along with the diabetes. So these are some pathological conditions that may occur under certain conditions when there is either hypers or hyposecretions of pancreatic glands, right? See, as I mentioned, gonad is also an important endocrine glands. So we already know the hormones that is secreted from gonad is androgens, mainly estrogen and progesterone, right? So here both the estrogen hormones and progesterone hormones along with the testosterone, they involve with the developments of the gonad or involves with the sexual developments. Now, as I mentioned, the hormones are very vital for cellular metabolisms or cellular activities. Now, how can we define the term hormones? It is nothing. It is just act as chemical messenger. Why it is called the messengers? Because it carries some message, right? It carries some message from its origin to its target cell, right? Now, question is, how they carries the message to their target site, right? Until and unless the message transmitted to the target cell unable to perform its proper functions, right? Now see how the different type of chemical messengers carries the message to the target cell for proper activities of the cells. What are the various types of chemical messengers? They are classified into mainly 4 different groups, right? So what are these? Called endocrine messengers, paracrine messengers, autocrine messengers and neurocrine messengers. So if you see their functional features or their mode of actions, there is a little difference from each other. So what are the different type of messengers and how they act? In case of autocrine messengers, it is secreted from a particular cells and the secretions act on the same cell from where they are secreted, right? Called the autocrine secretions. You can see these are the secretions hormones secreted from these particular cells, and after the secretions the hormones acts on the same cells from where they are secreted, called autocrine action or autocrine messengers, right? You can see here this is autocrine function. In case of paracrines, their target cells is very near to their site of secretions. So this is the cells from where they are secreted and this is their target cells. This is very close to the site of secretions and they act on the target cell which is very close to their site of secretions. So this type of secretions is called paracrine secretions or paracrine action, right? You can see from here also the paracrine actions. In case of endocrine actions, the most important one, it involves the circulations, means the hormones first secreted into the circulations. There is no involvement of any duct, right? They directly secretes their hormones into the circulatory blast, and blood carries the hormones to their target site, right? This is the target cells from where they act, right? It is little bit distance from their site of origin, right? So these are the most important types of secretions. Along with this, another is neurocrine secretions. In case of neurocrine secretions, you can see this is the terminals of the axons, and this terminal of axons secretes some neurotransmitters, and they act on the other neuron that is adjacent to the previous neurons, right? So it means this is the synaptic clefts from a neurotransmitters are secreted from first neuron, and this neurotransmitter bind with the receptor present in the postsynaptic neurons. So these actions is called neurocrine actions, or the transmitter involves is the neurocrine transmitter. So here it means the chemical messengers or hormones. If you classify the hormones, you can classify the hormones based on their function, like autocrine, paracrine, endocrine, as well as neurocrine. Now see, hormones also can be classified in some other, based on some other properties, right? We have already mentioned the name of different type of hormones secreted from different glands. Now, as I have already mentioned, if you see the chemical features of all those hormones, there is some differences, right? As there is differences in chemical features, obviously the mode of actions also will be different, right? So if you see the chemical features or other properties of the hormones, hormones are mainly categorized into two groups, right? Group 1 hormones and group 2 hormones. And see what are the group 1 hormones and what are the group 2 hormones. The most important features of the group 1 hormones, they are lipophilic or lipophilic. It means the hormones, they easily can cross the cell membrane, as because cell membrane is composed of lipid substance only, right? So those hormones which are lipophilic in nature, they easily can cross the cell membrane. At the same time, there are a group of hormones called group 2, like polypeptides. These are basically the protein hormones or amine hormones, and these group 2 hormones are hydrophilic in nature. They are unable to cross the cell membranes without the involvement of some carrier, so-called receptors, right? Means based on the chemical features of the hormones, they are categorized into two groups called group 1 and group 2, right? At the same time, if you see the plasma half-life of the hormones, or group 1 hormones and group 2 hormones, what is plasma half-life? Plasma half-life of hormones is, it is the ability of a particular hormone in which the 50% of the hormones are eliminated from circulatory blood. It means the time required to eliminate 50% of the hormones from circulatory blood is the half-life of that particular hormones. So here you can see the hormones which are belonging from group 1, their half-life is little more in comparison to hormones belonging from group 2, right? At the same time, the group 1 hormones, if you see the receptors into which hormones are act and their locations. In case of group 1 hormones, the most important thing is receptors are intracellular. Means all the receptors are either present in the cell cytoplasms or in the nucleus, right? Whereas for group 2 hormones, the receptors are basically present in the cell membrane only, right? Why? As because these are the group 1 hormone which is lipophilic in nature, they easily can cross the membrane and they can bind to the receptor present in the cell cytoplasms as well as receptor present in the nucleus, right? On the other hand, the group 2 hormones, they are hydrophilic, they are unable to cross the membranes, they need some carrier. So here carrier are nothing, these are the receptor molecules and these receptors are basically present in the cell membrane only, right? If you see the mode of actions of group 1 and group 2 hormones, here they act for the formations of receptor hormone complex only. But in case of group 2 hormones, they act via some second messenger molecules. So if you see the second messenger systems, you will find a number of second messenger molecules through which the group 2 hormones are acts. So what are those second messenger molecules? These are cyclic AMP, cyclic GMP, calcium ions, then phosphodiethyl inositol along with some kinase, right? So these are second messenger molecules, and these second messenger molecules are takes place during the action of group 2 hormones, whereas receptor hormone complex is the part of group 1 hormone. Now see, the hormones also can be classified based on their mechanism of actions. As I already mentioned, the hormones that binds to the intracellular receptors. Just now I mentioned, this is the group 1 hormones. Their receptors basically present in the cell cytoplasms and the nucleus. Here, these are come under this category, right? Whereas group 2 hormones that binds to cell surface receptors. So this involves the messenger cyclic AMP, GMP, then calcium ion, inositols, as well as some kinase, right? It means we have already seen the group of hormones, their features. Now we will see how the different types of hormones act into the target cell. Before knowing about the mode of actions of different hormones, we must know the list of hormones who are actively participates or who works with the involvements of second messengers. You have to memorize the list of hormone name, because in question paper they may ask, describe about the mode of actions of somatostatin. So you have to know about the natures of the somatostatin first, whether it acts through the second messenger systems, whether it acts through the intracellular receptors or not. If it is intracellular, then you have to explain about the mode of actions where intracellular receptors are involved. If it is second messengers, then you have to explain the another ones. So these are some list of hormones that mainly involves the second messenger called adrenal cyclase or cyclic AMP, right? So you have to memorize the list of name. And at the same time, these are some hormones which mainly involves the phospholipase C. The phospholipase C also acts as a second messenger. And these are the group of hormones which involves some receptor called receptor tyrosine kinase or tyrosine kinase signaling. Now see, what is the general mode of actions? The mode of actions of a particular hormones is divided into 3 segments. The first segment is the binding to receptors. The second segment is activations of post-receptor messenger, and ultimately the cellular response or cellular answer. This three part is the most important part of the mode of actions of a particular hormone. Now see, what is the general mechanism of actions where second messenger systems are involved? Here, suppose there are some hormones which are water solubles, hormones. As these are water soluble hormones, their receptors are basically present in the cell surface only, right? The hormones which are water soluble, for their actions, they have some specific receptors, and these receptors are present in the cell surface only. There is no involvement of intracellular receptors, right? So here, at the initial point of time, what is the exact arrangement of the receptors and other things in the cells? See here in the cell's membrane, there is a specific receptors. We know the receptor always shows some specificity. I mean, the specific receptors always bind with the specific molecule only, right? Here, This is the specific hormones that may bind to the specific receptors. In this particular conditions, this is the unbound state of hormone receptor system, right? Once hormone binds to this specific receptors, there is an activation of a certain molecules. The name of the molecules is the G protein, right? Here you can see this is an inactive G protein. This is an inactive G protein which is basically attached to the inner surface of the cell membrane. Once the receptor binds to the hormone binds to the receptors, there is an activation of this G protein. So now question is, what is the chemical features of the G proteins or structural features of the G proteins? If you see the structural features of the G proteins, you will find there is 3 different domains. And these 3 different domains are nothing. These are alpha, beta and gamma domains. The most important one that takes place in the second messenger systems is the alpha G proteins or alpha sabines, right? You can see here, once hormone binds to these receptors, there is an activation of the G proteins. Once G protein is activated, it's detached from its neighboring unit. It detaches from beta and gamma, right? See here, this is the beta and gamma and this is the activated alpha subunit. And it detaches from this beta and gamma, and after detachment, it binds to the another important molecules that was inactive before binding called adrenal cyclase. It binds to the adrenal cyclase which helps to activate the adrenal cyclase, right? Once adrenal cyclase activates, so cyclase is an enzyme, right? So enzymes is a biocatalyst. Enzyme acts as a biocatalyst. It catalyzes some chemical reactions. Here, this is the chemical reactions, right? The conversions of ATP to cyclic AMP. That is catalyzed by the active adrenal cycles. And this catalysis of ATP to cyclic AMP or catalysis of these reactions produce the messenger called cyclic AMP. Here, cyclic AMP is the second messenger. Now, question is, what is first messengers? First messengers, here it is the hormone itself, right? So, cyclic AMP which is produced in presence of active adrenal cyclase. Once cyclic AMP is produced, it takes place in cascade of reactions that is essential for the cellular response, right? So, if I want to brief the things, in this particular case, the receptors are basically present into the cell surface membrane, right? And receptors are very specific. They always bind to the specific molecules. Here molecules is the specific hormones. Once hormone binds to the specific receptors, there is an activation of G protein. G proteins are nothing. This is a domains of 3 different subunit, alpha, beta and gamma subunit. Here's once hormones binds to the receptors, there is an activation of G alpha subunits. Once it's activated, it detaches from the beta and gamma, and after detachments, it directly binds with the another important molecules that is located in the cell membrane called adrenal cyclase. Once alpha subunit binds to the adrenal cyclase, there is an activation of adrenal cyclase. Activation of adrenal cyclase helps to catalyze specific reactions. The reaction is the conversions of ATP to cyclic AMP. So, here cyclic AMP acts as a second messengers. Once cyclic AMP are produced, it takes part in a cascade of biochemical reactions, ultimately reach to the target cells, and target cell will respond accordingly. So, here you can see 2 different hormones. One is stimulating hormones A, another is inhibiting hormone B. In some cases, cell needs to reduce a particular chemical reactions. In other conditions, it may needs to increase the rate of reactions. So, how both the conditions are regulated. So, this is how they are regulated. Like in case of the first one, here the most important molecules that is activated is G alpha stimulatory or G alpha S, right? When the nature of the hormones is stimulatory hormone, it activates the G alpha stimulatory G protein. when it is inhibitory hormones, it activates the G alpha inhibitory G proteins, right? So here both the hormones or their mode of actions is almost same. You can see the generation of cyclic MP like the previous one, and they activates the cascade of reactions. Here cascade of reactions means the involvement of protein kinase A. See, after the conversions of ATP to cyclic AMP, it activates some other inactive enzymes. So here inactive enzyme is cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase A, right? Initially it was inactive. Once cyclic AMP acts on it, there is a dissociation of its two different subunits. Here protein kinase A basically composed of one regulatory subunit and one catalytic subunit, right? Once cyclic AMP binds with this, there is a detachment of the regulatory subunit from its catalytic subunit. So catalytic subunit always involves with the catalysis of reactions. So what is the reactions here? It involves with the phosphorylations of a particular protein, right? You can see the phosphorylations of protein, and by the reactions called phosphorylation reactions, and this phosphorylation reactions is catalyzed by enzyme called active protein kinase A. So once the proteins is phosphorylated, it will show different cellular response like enzyme activations, protein synthesis, muscle contractions, nerve stimulations, and hormone secretions. So here the activations of protein kinase A is also very important. The activations of protein kinase A is under the control of the second messenger, that is cyclic AMP. Now see, other than cyclic AMP and protein kinase, there are some other molecules that also act as a second messenger. So what are those second messengers? These are phosphatidyl inositol phosphate and diacylglycerol. Phosphatidyl inositol phosphate, these are second messengers, along with the diacylglycerol. This is the second messenger, like cyclic AMP. Now you can see the mode of actions here. See the receptors where the first messenger binds. Once it binds, there is an activation of alpha, and it binds with the phospholipase C that is attached to the inner face of the cell membrane. Once alpha binds with the phospholipase C, it gets activated, right? Right? Here, the phospholipase C is attached to the molecules called phosphatidyl inositol phosphate. This phosphatidyl inositol phosphate is very important here. How? It's because this phospholipase C takes part in the formations of two molecules, that is diacylglycerol and inositol triphosphate, right? Or IP3. So if you see both the molecule diacylglycerol or DAG and IP3, as I mentioned, like cyclic AMP, DAG and IP3 also act as a second messenger, right? See here, once IP3 is activated or once IP3 is produced, right, it causes the increase in the level of intracellular calcium ion. How? IP3 actually helps in the mobilization process. You can see from here, this is the endoplasmic reticulum cell membrane. In the cell membrane, there is a calcium channel. Once IP3 is produced, it allows the more and more number of calcium ions from extracellular phase to the intracellular phase. Means it helps in the mobilizations of calcium ion. So mobilizations of calcium ions is fully depends on these particular molecules, right? Once there is an increase in the calcium ions, it takes part some other biochemical reactions with calmodulin called calcium calmodulin system, right? See, increase in calcium ions in the cytosols causes the activations of calmodulins, and these calmodulins induces some changes in the protein structures. Based on the changes in the protein structures, cells will show their cellular response. So it means, like cyclic AMP, here IP3 played an important role. Calmodulin also takes part in the cellular response process. Here you also can see the diacylglycerol. As I mentioned, diacylglycerol or DAG is also acts as a second messenger. This DAG binds to the protein kinase C. As protein kinase C having two subunits, one is regulatory, one is catalytic subunit. Once DAG binds to the PKC, there is a detachment of the regulatory subunits from the protein kinase, whereas this activated form of protein kinase C again allows the calcium ions from extracellular phase to intracellular phase. It means both the DAG and IP3 is nothing, they are chemical messengers, they involve with the mobilizations of calcium ion, which is very essential for the cellular response. So these are the general mode of hormone actions where second messenger systems are involved. Other than second messengers, as I mentioned, there are some hormones which are steroid in nature. They easily can cross the cell membranes, right? In their case, the receptors are basically located in the cell cytoplasms or nucleus, right? So here you can see the mode of actions for steroid hormones. In case of this is a specific receptors that are located in the cell cytoplasms, and this is the steroid hormones. It easily crosses the membrane and enters into the cytoplasms and binds to the specific receptors, and they form a complex called hormone receptor complex. Once the complex are formed, it can penetrate the nuclear membrane and enters inside the nucleus, right? And once it enters in the nucleus, it has a specific binding site that is present into the nuclear DNA, right? The name of the binding site is called hormone receptor binding site or hormone response element site. So here, this is the site where hormone receptor complex can bind, that is located in the DNA. Once this hormone receptor complex binds to this specific site of DNA, there is an alterations in the transcriptions of nucleic acids. There is a synthesis of mRNA. There is a synthesis of mRNA, and based on the natures of the mRNA, it will produce a certain types of proteins inside cell, and cells will give response accordingly. So it means here in this particular case, like estrogen or testosterone, those are steroid. In their case, they will follow this mode of hormone actions, right? Where the receptors are basically present in the two sites. One is intracellular cytoplasms and another is inside the nuclei part. First, hormone can bind, and accordingly they change the cellular characteristics. So this is the general mode of hormone actions, how the hormone molecules acts through the second messenger systems, how the hormone acts through the nuclear receptors.